Welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf, one of your hosts, joined by your other two hosts, Riley Fessler. How are you, Riley?
Splendid.
Splendid. And Minna Stein. How are you, Minna?
I'm excited for the week ahead.
Excited for the week ahead. Last week, for those of you who are interested in U.S. politics, was clearly a monumental week with the Democratic National Convention here in this country. That means politics are sort of entering the home stretch with 10 weeks to go before the election, which has consequences for anything. But we cover the whole world, and we don't just cover Democratic side of politics here. And I think Minna's lead story will talk about another side of politics, right?
Yes. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has suspended his presidential campaign and endorsed Donald Trump, though he will remain on the ballot in non-competitive states. Kennedy's campaign failed to gain significant support, and his poll numbers dropped sharply after President Biden exited the Democratic race. His endorsement of Trump is expected to have a minimal impact on the overall election, as Kennedy's support was equally drawn from both Trump and Kamala Harris. Polling data shows Kennedy's departure might slightly benefit Trump among certain demographics, but overall changes in support for either candidate are small.
Yeah, I mean, I've read some analyses that say that it has no benefit for either candidate. I've read some that have said that it has a benefit for Harris. I've read some, I mean, the reality is this guy is a fringe nutcase who, caught a lot of attention because he has a famous last name. But it was very clear after, just a few weeks that, he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I don't want to pick on him. Any of us could get a brain worm and it could eat our brain, and then we would not be fully functioning, as was the case with this guy. But that's what happened to him, and he also has strange views. He's yet another guy who's signing on to the Trump campaign, who has said in the past that Trump is extremely dangerous. And I think we will have forgotten that he was even in the race within a matter of just a couple of weeks.
The big question is, what's Riley going to do now that RFK Jr. dropped out?
Well, I think he's going to go straight to Jill Stein.
I was going to say I'm going to throw my mighty weight behind Jill Stein.
Yeah, what impact is this going to have on your polling numbers?
I have to find a different drain to flush my vote down.
Yeah, well, Cornel West remains.
Oh, good one. That's a good one too.
Bad choice, also. Yeah, folks, this is we're joking around here. Don't try this at home. Candidates like this may seem kooky, but the difference between Hillary Clinton being president and Donald Trump being president was the number of votes Jill Stein got in 3 battleground states. So, they make a difference, and we shouldn't take them too lightly, or we should, take them lightly and then do something, treat them as though we were serious in trying to defeat them. Anyway, Riley.
Israel launched a significant preemptive strike on Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, aiming to prevent a large-scale rocket and drone attack. The Israeli military claimed to have destroyed thousands of Hezbollah's rocket launchers using around 100 fighter jets. Despite this, Hezbollah retaliated by firing 320 rockets and drones at Israel, resulting in the death of 1 Israeli Navy soldier. The U.S. is attempting to prevent further escalation amid fears of a broader regional conflict, with Lebanon's prime minister also calling for de-escalation and adherence to the UN Security Council resolution that ended the 2006 Israel-Lebanon war.
Yeah, I think this escalation worried everybody, but I also began to hear towards the end of the day yesterday a sense that both sides wanted what has happened to be what happens. In other words, that this should be contained and both sides should move on from it. Of course, who can say? And Hezbollah is not the only group with an axe to grind, right? The Israelis, their sponsors, the Iranians, have not responded as people thought they would. And I think it's largely viewed that they have not, because they're waiting to see if there's any chance at all for a truce or a ceasefire or something positive in the Israel-Gaza conflict. So we wait. The situation remains extremely fragile. Hopes for a truce or a ceasefire remain low at this point, but there is no plan B. So people are continuing to work on them. The U.S. administration has top officials engaging with all the parties there in search of a solution. And I suspect that story is going to be with us for some time to come. Minna.
Ryan Evans, a safety advisor for Reuters, was killed in a missile strike on the hotel where he was staying with a 6-person team. The attack also injured 2 Reuters journalists, one of whom is in serious condition. Evans, a former British soldier, has been with Reuters since 2022, advising on safety in conflict zones, including Ukraine. The hotel was reportedly hit by a Russian missile, according to Ukrainian President Zelensky, though Reuters has not independently verified that claim. The regional prosecutor's office has opened an investigation into the attack, which occurred on Saturday night. The other 3 members of the Reuters team in the hotel were unharmed and accounted for.
Yeah, look, this is a hotel that is used by civilians, used by journalists. The Russians knew it. They hit it anyway. They hit a dam outside of Kyiv overnight in a big barrage against Kyiv that had, I think, something like in excess of 100 missiles and in excess of 100 drones. And they have no compunction about going after civilian targets, as we know now, after 10 years of this war. But there is some sense that they're ratcheting it up because of the embarrassment caused by the Ukrainian initiative into Kursk Oblast in Russia. And there was more saber rattling over the weekend from the Kremlin about that, and that Ukraine would soon pay the price. This is a war. This is what happens in a war. And right now, though, it's pretty much a standoff. The moving target, the portion that's got most people's attention, is what's going on in Kursk Oblast, because if the Ukrainians expand that much more, it's going to become a big drain on Russian resources and an embarrassment for the Kremlin. So on a daily basis, we'll not only talk about it here, but we'll do more of our main podcasts to talk about it. Riley?
Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign has raised a record-breaking $540 million since its launch, with a significant boost from the DNC in Chicago. The campaign raised $82 million during the convention, with a notable surge following Harris's acceptance speech. A third of the contributions came from first-time donors, the majority of whom were women. This impressive fundraising total, which includes contributions to the DNC and joint fundraising committees, has positioned Harris to maintain a cash advantage over her Republican opponent. The campaign has also ramped up its organizing efforts, with nearly 200,000 volunteer shifts signed up during the convention week, and plans to continue its momentum with a bus tour in Georgia.
Yeah, the campaign has made amazing gains in terms of support. This number that a third of this comes from first-time donors is a huge deal. This number of 200,000 volunteers is a huge deal. These sort of things just don't happen. $540 million in a month is astonishing. And these are the kind of developments that can really make a difference come election day, because they translate into ground game. They translate into getting out the vote. And at the end of the day, what's going to happen between now And November 5th is going to be about getting out the vote. Will young people vote? Will women vote? Will people of color vote? Will people who don't vote vote? That will determine whether this is a close election, who wins the election. And it costs a lot of money to go out, knock on doors, dial people up on the phone, send out emails, get vans to drive people to the polls, and so forth. You couldn't have had a better week than the Democrats had last week, except an election week in which there is a victory. And I don't see any sign that the Democrats are letting up, and it's driving Donald Trump cuckoo. So cuckoo that yesterday he started to say, well, I don't even know if I'm going to do this debate. He's will do anything for attention at this point, including accepting RFK Jr. onto his team, just to underscore that they are truly team weird. You're not, Minna. You're extremely normal. What's the last story here?
Yeah, well, I was one of those people who signed up to volunteer during DNC week. So it was really exciting that Riley chose to do a story about me this Monday morning.
And I think the fact that you looked at the story that Riley did and thought it was about you is a sign of incipient narcissism. And it's something that
and that's kind of what my next story is about as well.
Okay, go ahead.
With 71 days remaining until the election, Donald Trump took to Truth Social to express frustration over his recent Fox News appearance, where the network cut him off mid-sentence. Trump claimed he was invited by Fox News to critique Kamala Harris's speech at the Democratic National Convention, but was interrupted during the call. He also dismissed criticisms from the media and defended his status as a, quote, ratings machine. Harris's speech garnered significantly more viewers than Trump's Republican National Convention speech, and recent polls showed her leading Trump by 3.6 percentage points, with some polls showing a 7-point lead. The Washington Post reported that Trump's campaign is struggling to keep him focused as he prefers spending time golfing.
Look, Biden was tied or down a couple of points. Kamala Harris is up 3.5, 4 points, 5.6 points. The one I saw this morning was the one that said 7 points. Mm-hmm. That's a 5 to 10 point swing in a month, plus $540 million, plus 200,000 voters. Now, does that get sustained? Who knows? The Republicans are literally trying anything they can to win. But that has also included bringing new people into their campaign, like Corey Lewandowski, who's like a violent, a guy who's got all sorts of legal problems in his past, and there's apparently tension between his group and the people who were there originally. It includes Trump's antics on Truth Social. I think during the course of the Kamala Harris speech, Trump posted something like 55 Truth Social posts. They're frantic. May that continue. A month and a half ago, all the stories were how Trump is finally running a disciplined campaign. And now the stories seem to be something different. But as you point out, 10 weeks to go. 10 weeks. That's going to go by super fast, particularly for those of you who are listening to this show every morning. Clearly we will focus on covering this, not only in this show, but in all of our podcasts. We're going to really shift the focus of our podcasts towards the election because, whether you're talking about purely American politics or the U.S. economy or American society at large or geopolitics or national security or foreign policy, defense policy, intelligence policy, all the kinds of things we talk about on all of our shows, at the end of the day, the big story is this one. It doesn't mean other stories aren't important, But if Donald Trump wins or if Kamala Harris wins, it is a game changer across the board. We're going to do deep dives on that on a regular basis. And the best way to know what this all means is to listen to the best experts. And that's just what you'll find here on the DSR network. So join us on the daily in the mornings, join us in the daily blast, join us in our expert commentary shows. Words Matter, Above Average Intelligence, the Mothership, Deep State Radio, and so on. And we'll try to provide you with the kind of support that you want and that you can't get anywhere else. For now, thank you, Minna. Thank you, Riley. And thank you, everybody, for listening.